What a great day to harvest.
How's this field doing?
Terrific.
Come on, Sprout. It's picking time.
More homemade taste than that. Just have a whole serving.
The forgotten vegetables the Amish once grew didn't just feed, they sustained entire communities. These crops were chosen for a reason. They stored longer, grew stronger, and nourished families through the hardest seasons. And now that they're gone, it's time we ask, why did we ever stop growing them? Ground cherry or husk tomato is a fruit that often surprises those who have never encountered it. Wrapped in a papery husk, the small golden yellow fruit hides a sweet citrusy flavor that's perfect for snacking straight off the vine or used in pies, jams, and sauces. It's the kind of fruit that brings out memories of simpler times, where everything had a natural, vibrant taste. Often compared to a cross between a tomato and a cherry, ground cherries are versatile and grow easily in a home garden, making them a perfect addition for anyone wanting to reconnect with heirloom varieties. Their unique husk protects them from the elements, making them a fun, low-maintenance crop. Historically, they were commonly used in Amish kitchens to preserve summer flavors for the colder months, creating pies and preserves that kept the spirit of summer alive. If you think this little fruit sounds too good to be true, there's another vegetable coming up that also carries surprising flavors, a root vegetable that once saved many a meal during lean times. Stick around for the next topic. Salsify or oyster plant is a vegetable that's not commonly found in modern kitchens, but it has an intriguing flavor that once made it a staple in many households. When cooked, the root's creamy, smooth texture and flavor resemble oysters, making it a popular meat substitute during Lent. Salsify was once known as the vegetable oyster and used in soups, stews, and as a standalone dish. Its mild, slightly nutty flavor made it versatile for many dishes, while its creamy texture provided a rich addition to meals during the fasting season. But with its unique taste and easy-growing nature, Salsify is due for a comeback. If you thought oysters could only be enjoyed from the sea, wait until you experience this root vegetable's savory flavor. And speaking of roots, there's another vegetable that brings a punch of flavor and history. Get ready to discover a radish variety like no other in the next topic. Crookneck squash, lesser known as heirloom varieties, is a squash that holds a special place in the hearts of those who appreciate the deep, complex flavors of heirloom vegetables. Unlike modern hybrids, crookneck squash has dense, flavorful flesh that is perfect for frying or grating into breads. Its shape, with its distinctive crook in the neck, is immediately recognizable and holds a charm that modern, mass-produced squashes often lack. Heirloom varieties of crookneck squash were once a staple in Amish gardens, appreciated for their rich flavor and versatility in cooking. Today, they are becoming harder to find, but their taste and texture make them a must-have for any gardener or cook looking to reconnect with the flavors of the past. If you think this squash is the ultimate comfort food, just wait until you encounter the next vegetable, a radish with a spicy, earthy kick that has both culinary and medicinal uses. Stay tuned. Black Spanish radish is a root vegetable that packs a punch with its bold, spicy flavor and earthy undertones. Often used both as food and as a natural remedy, this radish was a go-to for many Amish families looking to fight off winter illnesses, especially coughs. Grated with a little salt, black Spanish radish was often consumed to clear the airways and boost the immune system during cold months. Its sharp, almost peppery taste makes it a unique addition to salads, soups, and stews, where it can add a bit of spice and depth to the flavor profile. While it's not the most commonly known variety of radish, black Spanish radish has a long history as a natural medicine and a valuable crop in the kitchen. If you think the healing power of vegetables is a thing of the past, think again. This radish proves that nature's remedies are often the best ones. Up next, we've got a tomato variety that is unlike any you've tried before. A meaty, flavorful heirloom perfect for canning. Stay with us. Amish paste tomato is not your average tomato. Known for its meaty texture and deep, rich flavor, this heirloom variety was once the go-to tomato for Amish families who wanted to preserve their harvest. Perfect for making sauces, salsas, and pastes, the Amish paste tomato holds up well to canning. allowing families to enjoy the taste of summer long into the colder months. Its thick flesh and fewer seeds make it ideal for cooking, providing a dense, flavorful base for sauces without being watery. This tomato's natural sweetness and acidity make it a favorite for those who appreciate the authenticity of home-cooked meals. Unlike the modern hybrid tomatoes that flood grocery stores, the Amish paste tomato retains the rich, full flavor that tomatoes were meant to have. If you thought this tomato was impressive, there's a corn variety coming up that might just blow your mind. This next variety is as striking as it is flavorful. Stay tuned for the next topic. Bloody butcher corn is a variety of corn that's as striking as it is flavorful, with dark red kernels that carry a deep history and a rich connection to Amish baking. Once ground into flour, this corn was used in everything from cornbread to tortillas, lending a distinct, hearty flavor that modern white corns just can't replicate. Its rich color and dense texture made it perfect for roasting as well, offering a smoky, almost sweet flavor that added character to many traditional Amish dishes. The deep red color of the kernels was not just for looks, it symbolized a connection to the past, as the corn was often passed down through generations, its legacy deeply woven into Amish culture and oral history. For many Amish families, the cultivation and use of bloody butcher corn was more than just a farming practice. It was a connection to their heritage, one that tied them to the land and their ancestors. If you think this corn variety is impressive, just wait until you discover the creamy, nutty goodness of the next vegetable, a bean that takes its flavors to the next level. Stay tuned for more. Lima beans, pole-type heirlooms, were nothing like the mushy beans you might find in a can. These Amish pole varieties were nutty, creamy, and packed with real depth of flavor. Grown on tall vines, the beans were harvested by hand, a process that made them a labor of love. When cooked, these heirloom lima beans had a firm, satisfying texture that made them perfect for stews, soups, and even as a side dish. The nutty taste paired well with savory herbs and spices, and they were often incorporated into Amish dishes that called for a hearty, earthy ingredient. What made these lima beans truly special was their ability to hold their shape while cooking, making them ideal for long simmering dishes without becoming mushy. They weren't just another vegetable in the garden, they were a cornerstone of Amish kitchens, providing both sustenance and flavor. If you thought these lima beans were a delicious throwback, get ready for a pepper variety that's even spicier, with a history just as rich. Stay tuned for more on the next vegetable. Fish pepper is a unique and striped variety of pepper that has a spicy kick with a twist, perfect for seafood dishes. Once nearly lost to time, this pepper has a fascinating history, as it was once widely used in early African American cooking, particularly for seasoning fish and seafood. The pepper's distinct stripes, which range from green to yellow to red, give it a visually striking appearance that stands out in any dish. Its heat is balanced with a slight fruitiness, making it perfect for adding depth to seafood recipes or even to soups, sauces, and stews. What makes fish pepper even more remarkable is its resurgence in recent years, as it was rediscovered in Amish seed catalogs, bringing this flavorful heirloom variety back to kitchens where it had been forgotten. If you think this pepper's spicy profile and history are impressive, just wait until you explore the next vegetable, a turnip variety that's equally delicious when roasted, pickled, or added to stews. Stay tuned for the next gem. Purple top white globe. Turnip is a versatile root vegetable that has long been an essential part of Amish kitchens. Sweet and earthy when roasted, these turnips are perfect for adding depth to stews, slaws, and pickling. Unlike the milder varieties of turnips you might find today, the purple top white globe turnip has a more robust flavor, making it a true staple in Amish farming. The roots are firm and hearty, offering a satisfying bite when cooked, and the vibrant purple top adds a pop of color to the garden. Whether simmered in soups, sliced thin for slaws, or pickled for a tangy treat, these turnips brought rich, earthy flavor to Amish meals year-round. Their versatility made them a favorite for preserving and canning, allowing families to enjoy them long after the harvest. If you think these earthy turnips are a great addition to any meal, just wait until you see the next vegetable, a crisp, crunchy variety that takes root in Amish gardens and kitchens. Stay tuned for more. Kohlrabi, giant white variety, is a vegetable that might not be as well known today, but it once held an important place in Amish gardens. With its unique bulbous shape and tender, crisp texture, this giant white variety of kohlrabi was prized for its versatility in the kitchen. Whether eaten raw in salads, sautéed, or roasted, kohlrabi added a refreshing crunch and subtle sweetness that was perfect for a variety of dishes. It was often served alongside meats, added to soups, or used in traditional Amish stews. Kohlrabi is also incredibly nutritious, offering a boost of vitamins and fiber, making it as good for the body as it is for the palate. If you think this unique vegetable is something worth rediscovering, you won't want to miss the next root vegetable on our list, a parsley variety that's equally surprising and flavorful. Stay tuned for more. Hamburg. Rooted parsley is a variety of parsley that's not grown for its leaves, but for its tender white root. This unique vegetable was commonly used in Amish kitchens, especially in stocks, soups, and stews, where it contributed a subtle, earthy flavor that was both fragrant and nutritious. The root of the Hamburg parsley is somewhat similar to a parsnip, with a mild, parsley-like flavor that's perfect for infusing into broths. Unlike the typical leafy parsley we often use today, this root variety was valued for its versatility in cooking. It could be boiled, roasted, or grated, and often found its way into hearty, rustic dishes. It's the kind of vegetable that's easy to overlook today, but was a vital part of the Amish way of cooking. If you think this root vegetable is unique, stay tuned for the next variety, another plant with a surprising flavor profile and history that adds a touch of elegance to any meal. Pink plume celery is a strikingly beautiful variety of celery that's as delicate as it is flavorful. With its frilly, pink-hued stalks, this heirloom celery is not only visually appealing, but also much more flavorful than the modern, store-bought versions we see today. Pink plume celery has a subtle sweetness and a depth of flavor that makes it perfect for everything from fresh salads to hearty soups. It's far less fibrous than the typical celery found in grocery stores, offering a tender crunch that can elevate any dish. Growing this variety requires patience, but the reward is a celery that has a richer flavor profile than anything we've come to expect from conventional celery today. If you're excited about the sweet, tender celery, just wait until you see the next root vegetable, a massive beet that once nourished both people and livestock alike. Mangelwurzel is a massive beet variety that served two purposes: feeding both livestock and people. Known for its enormous size, Mangelwurzel was often boiled, pickled, or mashed into hearty dishes that could feed large families. This root vegetable, though not commonly seen today, played a vital role in Amish farming, where it was grown in abundance to feed animals during the colder months. For human consumption, it was often used in rustic soups and stews, providing a dense, earthy flavor that could complement meats or other root vegetables. Whether it was cooked on its own or incorporated into hearty meals, Mangelwurzel provided essential nutrients and calories for many Amish families. If you think this hearty beet is interesting, wait until you discover the next vegetable on our list, a carrot variety that's sweeter and softer than what you're used to. Stay tuned. White Belgian carrot is a unique variety of carrot that was once a staple in Amish kitchens. Unlike the orange carrots we commonly find in stores today, white Belgian carrots have a much milder, sweeter flavor and a softer texture. This made them ideal for baked goods, where their natural sweetness could be showcased without overpowering other ingredients. The carrots were often used in Amish cakes, breads, and pies, offering a subtle sweetness and a light, tender texture that made them a beloved addition to desserts. Their pale color made them stand out among the other more vibrant root vegetables, adding an elegant touch to any dish. Beyond baked goods, white Belgian carrots were also used in savory dishes, where their delicate flavor added depth without being too bold. If you think these carrots are delicious, just wait until you try the next vegetable on our list, a pumpkin variety that has a special place in Amish kitchens, perfect for pies and other treats. Stay tuned for more. Long pie pumpkin is a variety of pumpkin that's known for its elongated shape and sweet, dense flesh. Unlike the traditional round pumpkins we see in fall, the long pie pumpkin has a unique oblong shape that's perfect for making rich, flavorful pies. Its flesh is less watery than other pumpkin varieties, making it ideal for baking and cooking without the need for excessive draining. Amish kitchens have long relied on this pumpkin for pies, breads, and other desserts, where its natural sweetness and smooth texture could truly shine. The long pie pumpkin's deep, rich flavor adds a layer of complexity to baked goods, making it the perfect ingredient for fall treats. Its ability to hold up well in baking without becoming mushy has made it a favorite for pies that require a dense, flavorful filling. If you think this pumpkin is the perfect ingredient for your next fall dessert, get ready for the next vegetable, collard greens with a history and flavor all their own. Stay tuned for more. Cabbage collards are a tender, flat-leafed brassica that offers a milder flavor than traditional cabbage, making them a versatile addition to the Amish kitchen. With their broad, leafy texture, cabbage collards are perfect for pan-frying with butter, where their subtle cabbage flavor pairs wonderfully with the richness of the butter. They have a natural sweetness that comes out when sautéed, and their tender leaves make them easy to cook without becoming tough or fibrous. Often enjoyed as a side dish, these collards can be seasoned with garlic, onions, or even smoked meats to enhance their flavor. Amish farmers appreciated cabbage collards for their resilience and ability to thrive in cooler climates, making them a staple for fall and early winter meals. The versatility of cabbage collards also means they can be used in soups, stews, or even raw in salads, adding a fresh, mild crunch. Their ease of cultivation and unique flavor profile make them an essential vegetable in many Amish gardens. If you think this simple brassica is worth a try, wait until you discover the next bean variety with a rich, smoky flavor that almost faded into obscurity. Turkey craw beans are a remarkable variety of string bean with a rich, smoky flavor that has been cherished by Amish seed savers for generations. The beans are named after the distinctive shape of the pods, which resemble the shape of a turkey's craw, and their deep green color stands out in the garden. What makes turkey craw beans truly special is their smoky, earthy taste, which develops when the beans are dried and cooked. These beans were once nearly lost, but thanks to dedicated Amish farmers who saved the seeds, they have been preserved for future generations. The beans are perfect for soups, stews, or even just cooked on their own, with their unique flavor adding depth to any dish. The seeds are often passed down through families, preserving both the genetic variety and the rich history of the beans. Whether used in traditional Amish recipes or as a modern twist on classic dishes, turkey craw beans offer a flavor that's hard to find in today's common bean varieties. If you think these beans are a unique treasure, you'll want to see what's next, another vegetable that's both sweet and easy to preserve for the winter months. Cylindra beets are a long, smooth beet variety that makes them easier to slice and can than the round varieties commonly found today. Their cylindrical shape not only makes for more uniform slices, but also helps them cook more evenly, making them a favorite for Amish farmers and home cooks alike. The sweetness of Cylindra beets is one of their most notable characteristics. When roasted or boiled, they retain a tender, juicy texture with a flavor that's rich but not overpowering. Due to their elongated shape, Cylindra beets also lend themselves well to canning, providing a convenient and flavorful vegetable to store for the winter months. They are easy to grow and require little maintenance, which made them a perfect crop for Amish gardens. If you think these beets are as practical as they are delicious, just wait until you experience the next vegetable, a striking green with bright red stalks that add both beauty and flavor to the garden. Rhubarb chard is a visually stunning vegetable that combines the best of both worlds: tender, edible leaves and vibrant red stalks. Often grown for its ornamental value as much as for culinary use, rhubarb chard adds a splash of color to Amish gardens, where it is prized for its versatility. These leaves are used in much the same way as other types of chard, often sautéed with garlic and butter or added to soups and stews. The stalks can be used in jams, jellies, or even baked goods, providing a delightful tang that balances the sweetness of fruits. Rhubarb chard's ability to grow in various conditions from spring to fall made it a reliable addition to Amish gardens, providing both a visually appealing ornamental plant and a nutritious, flavorful vegetable. If you think the red stalks of rhubarb chard are impressive, stay tuned for the next variety, an okra that offers a vibrant color and less slime than the traditional green varieties. Okra, red potted variety, is a visually stunning heirloom vegetable that stands out not only for its rich color, but also for its unique flavor. The red potted variety has a striking deep red skin, which makes it a standout in the garden and on the plate. In addition to its eye-catching appearance, red potted okra is known for having less slime than its green counterpart, making it more appealing to those who may shy away from traditional okra due to its texture. When cooked, the flavor of red potted okra is nutty, earthy, and slightly sweet, making it ideal for pickling, frying, or adding to stews and gumbo. In Amish kitchens, red potted okra has been used in everything from fried dishes to hearty soups, offering both flavor and texture without the traditional sliminess. If you think this red variety sounds like a must-try, stay tuned for the next vegetable, a type of squash that brings unique flavor and a perfect shape for planting in small gardens. Nanticoke squash is a rare native variety that has been carefully preserved in Amish seed collections for generations. This squash stands out with its nutty, dense flesh that is perfect for roasting. Unlike the typical pumpkins or zucchini, Nanticoke squash offers a unique sweetness and rich texture, making it a fantastic addition to any meal. When roasted, it caramelizes beautifully, bringing out a depth of flavor that pairs well with a wide range of seasonings, from savory herbs to a touch of cinnamon or nutmeg. The Nanticoke squash's versatility makes it a perfect side dish, yet its natural flavor is so distinct that it can be used as the star ingredient in many recipes. The deep connection Amish gardeners have with heirloom crops like Nanticoke squash ensures that the tradition of growing and enjoying this vegetable continues to thrive. If you think this squash is a hidden gem, stay tuned for another hearty, flavorful bean that's just as rich in history. Jacob's cattle beans, known for their distinctive spotted pattern that resembles a cow's coat, have long been a staple in Amish kitchens. These dry beans are hearty, rich, and perfect for a variety of dishes. Whether used in soups, stews, or baked bean pots, Jacob's cattle beans offer a depth of flavor that's hard to beat. When cooked, the beans become tender and absorb the surrounding spices, making them the perfect base for a hearty, filling meal. Their ability to hold their shape after cooking means they work well in dishes that require a long simmer, like slow-cooked baked beans or thick, savory stews. These beans are not just rich in flavor but also steeped in tradition, having been passed down through generations of Amish families. Jacob's cattle beans have been appreciated for their resilience, their easy cultivation, and their ability to provide essential nutrients, making them a vital crop in Amish gardens. If you're intrigued by the richness of these beans, wait until you discover the tangy, sour green coming up next that was used before lemons became widely available. Sorrel, garden variety, is a sour, lemony green that has been used in Amish kitchens for centuries to add a bright, tangy flavor to dishes. Before lemons were easily accessible, sorrel was the go-to green for adding that citrusy zing to soups, stews, and sauces. Its sharp, almost tart flavor pairs beautifully with rich, hearty ingredients like potatoes, beans, and meats, offering a refreshing contrast that cuts through the richness of these dishes. Sorrel's versatility doesn't stop there. It can also be used fresh in salads or as a garnish, adding both flavor and color to any meal. The Amish have long appreciated sorrel not only for its flavor, but for its ability to thrive in gardens with minimal care. It's an herb that can be enjoyed throughout the growing season, from the early spring when it's tender and fresh, to the later months when its flavor becomes more intense. If you think this tart green has a lot to offer, get ready to discover the next vegetable, a sweet tuber that's as crunchy as it is delicious. Chufa, groundnut, is a unique and versatile tuber that has been a staple in many Amish gardens for generations. Grown alongside corn, Chufa has a distinct nutty, sweet flavor and a crunchy texture that makes it a fun and delicious snack. This small tuber, often harvested and eaten raw, can also be dried like nuts for long-term storage, offering a sweet, earthy treat. Chufa is easy to grow and doesn't require much maintenance, making it a favorite for those who appreciate low-effort crops with high rewards. The plant's long, grass-like leaves also provide some shade for the corn, helping to create a more sustainable and harmonious garden. Its resilience and versatility made it an essential crop for those looking to diversify their harvest. If you think Chufa is a delicious and practical tuber, stay tuned for a lettuce variety coming up that's as beautiful as it is flavorful. Forellenschluss. Lettuce is an heirloom variety that stands out with its frilly leaves and vibrant colors. Known for its distinctive speckled leaves, which range from deep red to green, this lettuce adds both flavor and visual appeal to any dish. The mild, tender taste of Forellenschluss lettuce is perfect for fresh salads, sandwiches, or as a garnish, where its delicate crunch offers a refreshing contrast to richer, heavier ingredients. It's not just its looks that make this lettuce special, it's also the texture and flavor. Unlike some of the more common lettuce varieties, this variety is perfect for anyone looking for a dependable, flavorful lettuce that brings both beauty and taste to the table. While it's not commonly found in most modern grocery stores, its cultivation has been passed down through generations, making it a true heirloom. If you're intrigued by this vibrant, flavorful lettuce, there's another squash variety coming up that's just as unique and delicious. Stay tuned. Burpee's Butterbush squash is a compact, creamy variety of squash that's perfect for small Amish gardens and crowded root cellars. Unlike larger squash varieties, which can take up significant space, Butterbush squash is ideal for gardeners with limited space. It produces small, dense fruits that are perfect for roasting, baking, and mashing, and its creamy texture makes it a favorite in pies and soups. The flavor of Butterbush squash is sweet yet nutty, with a richness that pairs well with both savory and sweet dishes. Its compact nature also means it can be grown in smaller spaces like containers or raised beds, making it a versatile option for urban or backyard gardeners. Additionally, Butterbush squash is known for its excellent storage potential, allowing Amish families to preserve the harvest throughout the winter months. If you're intrigued by the flavor and practicality of Butterbush squash, you'll be equally fascinated by the next beans on our list. Drought-resistant and flavorful, they've stood the test of time. Blue-speckled Tepary beans are a unique and drought-resistant variety that has ancient origins, making them an ideal crop for Amish farmers who rely on hardy, reliable produce. These beans are known for their ability to thrive in dry conditions, making them a perfect fit for regions with minimal rainfall. Their deep blue speckled pods give them a distinctive appearance, and the beans themselves have an earthy, sweet flavor that makes them stand out in soups, stews, and bean salads. Native to the southwest United States and northern Mexico, Tepary beans were a staple for indigenous people for centuries before being adopted by other farming communities, including the Amish. When cooked, they become tender, but maintain their shape, absorbing the flavors of the dish while still offering a satisfying bite. If you're fascinated by these ancient beans and their adaptability, wait until you discover the next melon variety, a unique treat that Amish kitchens used for everything from jams to pies. Red-seeded citron melon is a variety of melon that's not sweet like the typical watermelon, but has its own special place in Amish kitchens. While it may not be the refreshing, juicy fruit you might expect, the red-seeded citron melon shines when it comes to preserving and canning. The flesh is firm and a bit bland, making it the perfect base for candied preserves, jams, and pie fillings. Amish farmers have long valued the melon for its ability to be preserved in a variety of ways, turning it into sweet, tangy confections that are perfect for winter months. It's often used in Amish kitchens to create preserves that can be enjoyed long after the summer harvest has ended. If you think this melon is unique, there's another vegetable coming up that's just as interesting, spicy, flavorful, and perfect for pickling. Cowhorn okra is a variety of okra that stands out for its long, curved, foot-long pods and unique flavor. Unlike most okra, which can have a slimy texture, Cowhorn okra is known for having significantly less slime, making it more enjoyable for those who may be put off by the texture of other varieties. The pods have a distinctive curve, resembling a horn, and they can grow up to a foot long, which makes them particularly attractive in a garden setting. When cooked, cowhorn okra develops a smoky flavor that adds depth to dishes like stews, gumbo, and fried okra. The less slimy texture and rich smoky flavor make cowhorn okra a favorite in Amish kitchens. It's the kind of vegetable that transforms simple dishes into something extraordinary with its unique flavor profile. If you think cowhorn okra is a must-try, you won't want to miss the next beans on our list. Hearty, flavorful, and perfect for pole bean lovers. Rattlesnake pole beans are a striking and delicious heirloom variety known for their unique speckled pods that resemble the markings of a rattlesnake. These beans grow on tall vines, making them ideal for those with limited space in the garden, as they can be trained to climb trellises or poles. The beans themselves have a hearty, earthy flavor that makes them perfect for soups, stews, or as a side dish. Their rich taste and tender texture make them a popular choice for Amish farmers who appreciate the deep, satisfying flavor of heirloom varieties. Rattlesnake pole beans are also known for their impressive yield, providing plenty of beans for canning and preservation, ensuring that Amish families can enjoy them throughout the winter months. Scorzonera, also known as black salsify, was the wartime root vegetable that made a surprisingly elegant plate during rough years. With its jet black skin and creamy white flesh, it resembled a stick pulled from a coal pile. But once peeled and cooked, it turned buttery, smooth, and delicately sweet. Families in the 1940s tucked it into victory gardens when potatoes ran low and carrots dried out. It was easy to store, easy to grow, and dependable through harsh weather. Boiled, mashed, or roasted, scorzonera fed families without flair, but with comfort. It was one of those foods that hid in plain sight, filling bellies without making headlines. Today, it lives mostly in old gardening books and forgotten seed drawers. But its taste lingers for those who remember. Soft, earthy, and exactly what you needed when options were few. And for every sturdy root crop, there was one that brought sweetness, not from sugar, but from a past where even the soil seemed to remember how to be kind. Krosnes, sometimes called Chinese artichokes, looked like something dreamed up by a curious child. Tiny, coiled like seashells, and no bigger than your pinky, these tubers were delicate and crunchy, with a snap that echoed in every bite. In the 1950s and 60s, they were a secret weapon in holiday cooking, served buttered, sautéed, or lightly pickled on special occasion tables. Their flavor was nutty, somewhere between a water chestnut and a sunchoke, but their texture was the real show. They felt like biting into time itself, crisp, light, and strangely elegant. Krosnes were pushed aside by easier crops and plastic-packaged convenience. But the memory lingers, in old French cookbooks, in grandmother's stories, and in the longing for a time when vegetables could still surprise you. And if Krosnes were a treat for the curious, the next vegetable was built for the hard times, filling, dependable, and quietly packed with history. So, Hopi Piki bread is also something that's a blue corn delicacy, but this time it's in an entirely new form. This takes the nutty flavors of blue corn that people love so much and turns it into this wafer-thin, decadent blue cornbread that was entirely unique to the Hopi people who had made their homes in northern Arizona. It was considered a ceremonial food, but it also turned into an everyday one. People would make it for coming-of-age parties, birthdays, weddings, special celebrations, and just whenever somebody wanted to throw a feast. What set it apart from other kinds of breads of the time, though, was how thin it was. The cooking process also set it apart, because first, you had to make a batter out of blue corn and ash before you started spreading it on a stone slab that had been greased and warmed up. This made these layers that would be rolled into fragile sheets. But the most attractive part about the process was that the layers were almost entirely translucent. This was a technique that was near and dear to indigenous customs and culture, as it would always be passed down through each succeeding generation. It was a way for them to have cultural continuity. Sea kale once thrived along the wind-whipped edges of coastal farms. Its waxy leaves, tinged with silver and salt, sprouted like gifts from the sand. In the 19th century, it was a delicacy, harvested in seaside gardens from Maine to the Carolinas, bundled and sold fresh to hungry market towns. Sea kale was rich in minerals, hardy against salt spray, and packed with flavor that sat somewhere between asparagus and broccoli. You could boil it, roast it, or sauté it in butter until the stems turned sweet and tender. In springtime, its tender shoots were as prized as green beans. But as the 20th century rolled in, sea kale faded. Commercial agriculture demanded uniformity, and sea kale was stubborn. It thrived on coastlines, not in rows. It did not ship well, and so it was replaced by easier crops. But sea kale fed seaside families and enriched soil where few other crops would take root. It was more than a vegetable. It was a survival tactic on cliffs and dunes, and while sea kale hugged the coast, a very different kind of tuber dug deep in the woods, quietly feeding entire nations long before the word organic existed. Sea kale once thrived along the wind-whipped edges of coastal farms. Its waxy leaves, tinged with silver and salt, sprouted like gifts from the sand. In the 19th century, it was a delicacy, harvested in seaside gardens from Maine to the Carolinas, bundled and sold fresh to hungry market towns. Sea kale was rich in minerals, hardy against salt spray, and packed with flavor that sat somewhere between asparagus and broccoli. You could boil it, roast it, or sauté it in butter until the stems turned sweet and tender. In springtime, its tender shoots were as prized as green beans. But as the 20th century rolled in, sea kale faded. Commercial agriculture demanded uniformity, and sea kale was stubborn. It thrived on coastlines, not in rows. It did not ship well, and so it was replaced by easier crops. But sea kale fed seaside families and enriched soil where few other crops would take root. It was more than a vegetable. It was a survival tactic on cliffs and dunes, and while sea kale hugged the coast, a very different kind of tuber dug deep in the woods, quietly feeding entire nations long before the word organic existed. Scorzonera, also known as black salsify, was the wartime root vegetable that made a surprisingly elegant plate during rough years. With its jet black skin and creamy white flesh, it resembled a stick pulled from a coal pile. But once peeled and cooked, it turned buttery, smooth, and delicately sweet. Families in the 1940s tucked it into victory gardens when potatoes ran low and carrots dried out. It was easy to store, easy to grow, and dependable through harsh weather. Boiled, mashed, or roasted, scorzonera fed families without flair, but with comfort. It was one of those foods that hid in plain sight, filling bellies without making headlines. Today, it lives mostly in old gardening books and forgotten seed drawers. But its taste lingers for those who remember. Soft, earthy, and exactly what you needed when options were few. And for every sturdy root crop, there was one that brought sweetness, not from sugar, but from a past where even the soil seemed to remember how to be kind. Now, mind you, pine nut soup was something that wouldn't last a day in modern times, but was all the rage back then even outside of the indigenous communities. Pine nuts were considered such a staple food for so many different indigenous tribes, particularly throughout the Southwest and the Great Basin regions. They were tribes like the Apache, Hopi, and Navajo, to name a few. They all relied on pune nuts for two things: their exceptionally buttery and rich taste and their incredible amount of fat content. Pine nuts were traditionally just gathered from the branches of piñón pine trees, and they were always roasted for easy amounts of shelling. Then, they would be ground into a nutrient-dense paste, and one of the most common ways to do that was to consume them in this rich soup that could be eaten alone or mixed with other kinds of dried meats and cornmeal or wild greens. Pine nuts are something that would basically be made in a broth that would be based either around the local game of the day or the vegetables that were available. Then, optional thickeners such as cornmeal and ground mesquite beans were something that were dearly beloved. Wild herbs were something that were considered optional, but most people honestly always added them, at least across the recipes I can find. It was sustainable, long-lasting, and the pine nuts could also last a tribe months if they were kept properly. They were a rich source of protein, magnesium, and vitamin E as well. Cowpeas were more than just black-eyed peas. They were a lifeline during the Depression and a proud fixture in southern kitchens long before food came in cans. You could grow them in worn-out soil where other crops failed. They did not need pampering, just heat, sun, and time. People boiled them, stewed them, mashed them with onions and fatback, or folded them into skillet cornbread when flour was running low. They were cheap, filling, and packed with protein. But what made cowpeas special was how they connected generations. Grandmothers saved seeds in envelopes. Fathers turned soil before sunrise. Kids shelled the pods on porches, fingers stained and stories shared, still quietly carrying the flavor of survival. And if you thought cowpeas were humble, wait until you meet the dark, earthy root that pulled families through another kind of war, quietly feeding a nation from underneath the frostbitten soil. Tomatillos once grew like weeds, vining out behind sheds, popping up in kitchen gardens, and getting tossed into stews long before anyone called it cuisine. These little green globes and papery husks were more than side ingredients. They were staples. Farmers and homesteaders simmered them down into tart sauces, added them to beans, or pickled them for tangy snacks when the winter came in hard. The taste was unmistakable, sharp, citrusy, and a little wild. Tomatillos gave flavor to otherwise bland dishes, especially in homes that stretched one chicken over 3 meals. Today, they are coming back, but slowly, and mostly as novelty. But ask anyone who remembers and they will tell you, this little fruit brought brightness to even the dullest days. And as we look back on the crops that fed us, there is one more you might never have heard of, but it may have been the toughest seed ever planted in the American Southwest. Hominy stew was an essential dish across so many different Native American tribes that it's a surprise it's still not more well known. It was particularly common among the Southeast tribes, like the Cherokee, Choctaw, and Creek peoples. Hominy was something you could make from dried corn, but it had to go through the process of nixtamalization. It was something that was soaked in an alkaline solution that was typically made from wooden ash and lime water, and it was meant to enhance nutritional value. This was a process that gave you a lot of vitamin B3, which was something that was always in the corn but needed to be drawn out. Hominy-based stews were nostalgic communal meals that would be made in giant pots over large open fires and had all kinds of locally available game meat, vegetables, beans, and more, depending on what was going around in the region. Hominy itself was something that would give you a really nutty and chewy texture, but that worked well with the tenderness of the meat. It was something that was adding a lot of richness to the dish. The nutritional importance of hominy is definitely why it became such a cornerstone of indigenous culinary habits, though. This provided fiber, and most of their foods did, because it was really necessary for keeping yourself full longer. Besides keeping their appetite in check, Native Americans also lived a very high-energy lifestyle, for which carbohydrates were irreplaceable. The essential vitamins this gave them also ensured that they would be able to stay protected from local diseases and have a stronger immune system, and since it was eaten so commonly, it became a regular way to upgrade an individual's nutrition within the tribe. Hopness, also known as the American groundnut, was the superfood before anyone coined the word. It grew wild along streams and forest edges, feeding indigenous communities for generations. This climbing vine produced small, knobby tubers underground, rich in protein, sweeter than potatoes, and easy to preserve. Colonists learned about it from native farmers, and for a time it became a lifeline. Boiled, roasted, or mashed, hopness nourished early Americans through lean winters and empty cupboards. The plant fixed nitrogen in the soil. It thrived without chemicals. It gave back more than it took, but it never made it into the glossy seed catalogs. It grew slowly, it looked humble, and its true value could not be rushed. Over time, hopness was edged out by faster, cheaper starches, but those who remember it speak of it with reverence, a forgotten food that gave quietly. That sustained without flash. And like the parsnip, which once reigned in the root cellars of every American farm, its story has nearly vanished from modern plates. Hopness, also known as the American groundnut, was the superfood before anyone coined the word. It grew wild along streams and forest edges, feeding indigenous communities for generations. This climbing vine produced small, knobby tubers underground, rich in protein, sweeter than potatoes, and easy to preserve. Colonists learned about it from native farmers, and for a time it became a lifeline. Boiled, roasted, or mashed, hopness nourished early Americans through lean winters and empty cupboards. The plant fixed nitrogen in the soil. It thrived without chemicals. It gave back more than it took, but it never made it into the glossy seed catalogs. It grew slowly, it looked humble, and its true value could not be rushed. Over time, hopness was edged out by faster, cheaper starches, but those who remember it speak of it with reverence, a forgotten food that gave quietly. That sustained without flash. And like the parsnip, which once reigned in the root cellars of every American farm, its story has nearly vanished from modern plates. Blue corn mush was something that was a staple dish among the Navajo and other various tribes throughout the southwestern lands. The Hopi and Pueblo people were most commonly known for having this. It was actually made from blue cornmeal, mixed with water, then blended with juniper or cedar ash and cooked into a porridge. Blue cornmeal is something that has incredible prestige in Native American culture because it's made from the equally as important crop, blue corn. It's a unique kind of corn because it has a much more concentrated sweetness and nuttiness to it than others too. There's the occasional salt and sweetener as well, but that's really just it. Blue corn mush was considered an essential dish for survival in humid and arid climates. It gave sustenance because it was really easy to prepare, carry, and consume quickly. It also was considered a nutritional powerhouse due to its incredible amount of fiber, protein, and antioxidants. Blue corn mush was something that was considered a ceremonial food, and it was also something a lot of tribes relied on for it being baby food. It had a really mild flavor, and it had an incredible amount of digestibility benefits. Plus, the fiber that it had meant that most people would stay full for a lot longer. Parsnips used to be royalty in the American root cellar. Before sugar was cheap and carrots were sweetened for the supermarket aisle, parsnips were the go-to. Their flavor deepens after frost, turning earthy, nutty, and just sweet enough to make children smile in a stew. In colonial times, they were mashed into cakes, roasted alongside meats, and even fermented into wine. They were not just hearty, they were versatile, and farmers loved them because they grew big, lasted long, and gave the land a break. But then came the carrot, flashier, more colorful, easier to slice into lunchboxes. By the 1950s, parsnips were cast as old-fashioned, grandparent food, and slowly they faded. A time when flavor came from patience and winter meals started underground. And for every old root that softened in the stew pot, there was one herb-like giant that once stood tall in farm gardens, flavoring meals with forgotten strength. Wild rice and cranberry pilaf is something that's really inseparable from the Great Lakes and Upper Midwest areas. This is something that is especially very closely linked to the Ojibwe, Chippewa, and Anishinaabe tribes. They had been known for harvesting manoomin, or otherwise known as wild rice, for quite a while. Their techniques and in-depth knowledge of the process had been a treasured community resource for several centuries. Wild rice was something that would always occur naturally since it was an aquatic grain. It would thrive in slow-moving streams and slightly shallow lakes, of which there were many back then. Cranberries were also a very key component because they were one of the few things indigenous to North America and grew in incredible abundance throughout the northeastern stretch of land. The nutritional benefits of mixing both together meant that they had a rice-based dish with a lot of protein, fiber, and an incredible amount of vitamin C and essential minerals. This is really the kind of thing you'd eat to give your body a shot of everything it needs. Cowpeas were more than just black-eyed peas. They were a lifeline during the Depression and a proud fixture in southern kitchens long before food came in cans. You could grow them in worn-out soil where other crops failed. They did not need pampering, just heat, sun, and time. People boiled them, stewed them, mashed them with onions and fatback, or folded them into skillet cornbread when flour was running low. They were cheap, filling, and packed with protein. But what made cowpeas special was how they connected generations. Grandmothers saved seeds in envelopes. Fathers turned soil before sunrise. Kids shelled the pods on porches, fingers stained and stories shared, still quietly carrying the flavor of survival. And if you thought cowpeas were humble, wait until you meet the dark, earthy root that pulled families through another kind of war, quietly feeding a nation from underneath the frostbitten soil. Chicory root was the uninvited guest that stayed long enough to become family. When coffee was scarce, during wars, blockades, or just hard times, chicory root stepped in. Dried, roasted, and ground, it brewed a bitter, earthy cup that kept people going when the real beans were gone. It was more than a substitute. Even today, you will find it in parts of Louisiana and the South, where tradition and necessity still walk hand in hand. Chicory reminded everyone that taste does not always come easy, but it can be made. And once something proves it can stand in for what you lost, you never quite forget it. But while chicory stood strong in lean years, the next forgotten crop was zesty, vibrant, and hiding in backyard gardens long before salsa had its own aisle. Sumac lemonade was something that was known as sumac-ade, but it was actually just a citrus-esque beverage that had an incredible amount of tart to it. It was made from staghorn sumac, which was a plant that produced berries, and smooth sumac. For Native American tribes, these are two instrumental berries due to the way they function as both a nifty food source when fast-acting nutrition is required and a medicinal ingredient. Sumac berries were also something that ripened in the late summer, and they were always steeped deeply in water so that a refreshing, vitamin C-rich drink could be made. Lemons had not been introduced to the North American region yet, so sumac was the next best and closest thing. Still, it had a lot more uses than lemonade ever did. You could use sumac to even flavor different kinds of game and soups, which isn't something you usually hear too much about lemon. Sumac berries were actually harvested when they were deep red, dried, and fresh, and the cold water would help to get the tart flavor out without releasing the tannins that were there inside. The optional sweeteners, such as maple syrup and agave syrup, were really helpful in balancing that tartness out, but most people just had sumac lemonade as it was. They had to be steeped in the water for hours and strained thoroughly though, which was definitely a lot of work. Tepary beans were not just a crop, they were a survival tool. Long before drought-resistant seeds were engineered in laboratories, these humble beans were feeding families in the arid Southwest with little more than sunlight and grit. Native to the region and cherished by indigenous communities for centuries, Tepary beans thrived where other crops shriveled. Their small size packed a surprising punch, high in protein, fiber, and resilience. During the Dust Bowl years and World War rationing, these beans earned their place at the table once again. Farmers who had nearly given up on planting found that Tepary beans could endure heat, poor soil, and long dry spells, and still feed a family. Today, they are almost forgotten outside of seed catalogs and heirloom farmers markets. But when you bite into a bowl of Tepary chili or bean salad, you are tasting not just food, but history, cooked low and slow by survival. And if one dessert plant could hold off hunger, just imagine what the next forgotten crop once brought to America's coasts. Smoked eel was something that reflected how resourceful food traditions really were among indigenous people. Eel was something that swam commonly in the rivers of the northeastern United States, and it would be caught in coastal waters most commonly. Funnily enough, people actually used stone fish traps called weirs and spears to catch them. How would they use a spear? Some people thought they would just impale the eels as they swam in shallow waters, and some thought they would wrap bait around them which would lure the eel to the spears. Either way, pretty cool. Kind of like something you'd see out of a Walking Dead skit. Once the massive haul of eels was caught, they would then be smoked for preservation, and this would allow them to be stored for months and carried as a portable source of protein during migratory periods. Even when the tribes were settled or camped out, eels were still a very valuable source of nutrition, especially for waterway tribes. chicory root was the uninvited guest that stayed long enough to become family. When coffee was scarce, during wars, blockades, or just hard times, chicory root stepped in. Dried, roasted, and ground, it brewed a bitter, earthy cup that kept people going when the real beans were gone. It was more than a substitute. Even today, you will find it in parts of Louisiana and the South, where tradition and necessity still walk hand in hand. Chicory reminded everyone that taste does not always come easy, but it can be made. And once something proves it can stand in for what you lost, you never quite forget it. But while chicory stood strong in lean years, the next forgotten crop was zesty, vibrant, and hiding in backyard gardens long before salsa had its own aisle. Salsify, also called the oyster plant, was the root vegetable that tricked everyone, because when you cooked it just right, it tasted like shellfish pulled fresh from the coast. In the 1940s, it was a household favorite. Long, slender roots that peeled like parsnips and cooked into creamy, subtle perfection. You would boil it, mash it, roast it in butter, or slip it into chowders that passed as seafood feasts during meatless weeks. For working-class kitchens, it was luxury on a budget. It did not shout or demand attention. It simply delivered again and again. Its mild, briny flavor made it feel special, like something rare even when it was not. But as tastes changed and food trends leaned toward flashier imports and instant meals, Salsify slowly vanished from the produce bin. And if that root was subtle, the next one was bold, big, hearty, and too humble for modern grocery aisles. Buffalo roast with juniper berries is another flavorful Great Plains dish that makes use of every single part of the entire buffalo. The meat was used for food, the hides were skinned, preserved, and used for shelter and different clothing. Utensils and different kidneys of daily tools were made out of the bones, and even the dung was preserved so it could be used later for fuel. That's efficiency, like the textbook definition of it. Slow roasting buffalo meat was something most people associated with Native American culture anyway, but the native seasonings were the real highlight of the show. Juniper berries, in particular, were an extremely key method of preparing different kinds of nourishing meals. Juniper berries were used by so many different kinds of tribes across Northern America and had such a resinous, citrusy flavor to them that they were almost the go-to choice for most dishes. They also worked as a natural preservative, so it felt like they were made to work with savory meat dishes. One of the other reasons why I say that is because of the kind of meats Native American people worked with. Most of them, like buffalo and bison, were deeply rich in their flavor, and juniper berries helped to cut through that and balance out the flavors. The buffalo would be rubbed with those crushed berries, then slowly cooked over an open fire or a pit oven, and it would actually be a beautiful process to observe. Tepary beans were not just a crop, they were a survival tool. Long before drought-resistant seeds were engineered in laboratories, these humble beans were feeding families in the arid Southwest with little more than sunlight and grit. Native to the region and cherished by indigenous communities for centuries, Tepary beans thrived where other crops shriveled. Their small size packed a surprising punch, high in protein, fiber, and resilience. During the Dust Bowl years and World War rationing, these beans earned their place at the table once again. Farmers who had nearly given up on planting found that Tepary beans could endure heat, poor soil, and long dry spells, and still feed a family. Today, they are almost forgotten outside of seed catalogs and heirloom farmers markets. But when you bite into a bowl of Tepary chili or bean salad, you are tasting not just food, but history, cooked low and slow by survival. And if one dessert plant could hold off hunger, just imagine what the next forgotten crop once brought to America's coasts. See, chokecherry patties, on the other hand, were an incredibly important wild fruit that were very commonly consumed by the Cheyenne, Blackfoot, and Arapaho tribes. These astringent berries were always gathered in summer and were usually eaten fresh, with excess hulls being preserved and dried for the winter season. To start the preservation, chokecherry patties would have to be made, which was a technique that pretty much let berries be stored long-term and rehydrated for later use in drinks and stews. Fresh choke cherries were something that people gathered mid to late summer, and maple syrup and honey were popular sweeteners that people used along with the patties to enhance the taste. Choke cherries had to be crushed whole for this, but what was really important was making sure the pits were as finely crushed as they could be. Once they had become fully dried, patties were something that could be stored for months and then rehydrated later on. They were very rich in antioxidants, vitamin C, and were excellent sources of thickening agents for stews and different soups. Once they had become fully dried, patties changed texture. They were actually a bit more rubbery. Still, they are essential survival food because you couldn't find anything that was that high in energy. Parsnips used to be royalty in the American root cellar. Before sugar was cheap and carrots were sweetened for the supermarket aisle, parsnips were the go-to. Their flavor deepens after frost, turning earthy, nutty, and just sweet enough to make children smile in a stew. In colonial times, they were mashed into cakes, roasted alongside meats, and even fermented into wine. They were not just hearty, they were versatile, and farmers loved them because they grew big, lasted long, and gave the land a break. But then came the carrot, flashier, more colorful, easier to slice into lunchboxes. By the 1950s, parsnips were cast as old-fashioned, grandparent food, and slowly they faded. A time when flavor came from patience and winter meals started underground. And for every old root that softened in the stew pot, there was one herb-like giant that once stood tall in farm gardens, flavoring meals with forgotten strength. If you think these beans are a must-have in your garden, get ready for the next squash variety. Just as flavorful and perfect for planting in smaller spaces. Stay tuned for more! That wraps it up for Amish classics that we've forgotten about now. Did any of these stand out to you? Let us know in the comments below.